We're standing on the edge of a precipice. The lie of Fiat is you don't have to take responsibility. Let us take responsibility for your safety and then take your freedoms in exchange for that. Like 9 out of 10 times someone says, I lost my Bitcoin, and you ask more questions. It's like, actually, you gave your Bitcoin away to a scammer because you were trying to be a degenerate gambler.
I don't even know what a Bitcoin is.
The biggest risk is yourself.
Going back all those years to the early 2010s, what was it like to mine Bitcoin on a Linux machine?
It was a unique value proposition in that it was the first thing of its kind where it could not be copied, it could only be transferred. I'm trying to use my story as a way of telling people about how it can take you from nothing to being very rich. And for doing really not much else than buying it or holding it and forgetting about it for a very long time. It's not very complicated.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rob Wallace, and today I am joined by Josh Swift and Joshua Groth, two guys who have been in Bitcoin for quite some time now and have had a personal transformation through the power of Bitcoin. So the story is very interesting. It goes through loss and redemption and finding purpose through Bitcoin, and thought it would be amazing to share with the community. So I want to introduce you guys. First, Josh Swift, how are you doing today?
Great, thank you. I really appreciate you having me today.
Absolutely. And Joshua, how are you?
Life's great. Yeah. Loving life on the Front Range here in Boulder, Colorado.
Nice. Yes. So we met at Bitcoin Las Vegas, and you reached out to me and said, I've got a story. You've got to hear it. And so why don't we go through that story, Josh? You started in Bitcoin back in the day, and you lost it.
Yes. So
tell us the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So my story is not the most interesting story. I was basically a nerd, a technologist who was learning about Linux not soon after Pizza Day. And I did a Google search, basically, what do I do with my Linux machine? And because Pizza Day had just happened, it was saturating the search results. So it came up, well, you could do Bitcoin on your Linux. So I did that, and almost as soon as I started messing around with it, I stopped messing around with it, because back then it really wasn't worth much. And so I was a bit of a pack rat, and when I disassembled that computer, I took the hard drive out and put it in a box with a bunch of other hard drives that I kept in my shed. So long story short, I basically forgot about it, was out of my field of view, went got a job, became an IT professional, and then last year, late 23, early 24, my mom gets sick, and I lose my jobs, and I had some relationship difficulties, and a lot of things started going really poorly for me. And I had a little bit of money, so I was thinking, you know, I'll put it in real estate, I'll put it in stocks, I'll put it in something. And then because I'm a techie, I thought, well, maybe I should put it in Bitcoin. And then that is precisely when I remembered that I already had Bitcoin. But it was so long ago, and I was dumb enough to forget it. I certainly wasn't smart enough to remember it. So I was like, I couldn't not check. It was too much I couldn't not check. So went around my house, went around the garage, finally ended up in the shed, found this box of old hard drives, bought a little $10 dongle to hook into them, found one that I thought was a likely candidate, and then I sat on it for many months until I finally ended up at Porcupine Festival, where I met Joshua Groth, who was doing a Bitcoin self-custody workshop, and he made a remark in the workshop that he had helped somebody recover some Bitcoin. So I approached him, and then not soon after that, we recovered the Bitcoin off the drive.
Wow, amazing. And that changed your life, correct?
Yeah, so basically I went from the worst period of my life, dealing with family health issues, not having any work, basically being alone, and basically close to poverty, and then went from that to, I guess you could say, becoming very rich. I don't really relish the thought, and I'm trying to come out here and tell people about Bitcoin and Orange Pill people, so we can all learn from my experience and use my story as a way of telling people about how it can take you from nothing to being very rich. and for doing really not much else than buying it or holding it and forgetting about it for a very long time. It's not very complicated.
Yeah, no, it's an absolutely wild story. And Joshua, you played a huge part. So how did you get involved with Bitcoin and become an expert in recovering it?
Yeah, well, I guess meeting Joshua was fun. Over the last 5 or 6 years, I've basically spent majority of my time helping people practice self-custody, doing workshops, and promoting Bitcoin. I guess my Bitcoin story is one of like understanding what hard money is. When I was in school, my dad, I guess he read The Sovereign Individual way back in the day. I remember him telling me similar kinds of things and writing a paper called Musical Huts. And in this paper in school, there were like 10 huts, and each hut had one coin. And I kind of showcased the fallacy of the circular reasoning of growth as the indicator of health of an economy, where if you grow the village, increase the number of huts, but you also increase the number of coins, then the person who increases the number of coins gets to benefit from that, and likely further down the Cantillon effect, or that transfer of. So I understood that, and then in 2013, I watched the price of Bitcoin. I knew it was something I needed to pay attention to. I was just starting an aviation company and in a relationship and different stuff, and so I thought I had missed the bus when I watched Bitcoin go from $13 to $700. And I remember that feeling, like viscerally. I remember that feeling of like devastation. I was like, man, I knew what I needed to do. I know this. I understand this, and I fucked up. I'm gonna have to live the rest of my life knowing that that I knew that I basically missed the train. And so that was a kind of a hard feeling. And then 2017, I realized that Bitcoin was something more than like the $700 was, still very early. I was like, well, $700 is very early, then $17,000 is very early. And I just put my savings in Bitcoin, and I started like accumulating over time. I didn't really do too much with crypto or gambling or anything. And then in 2019, I kind of understood the world was going in a different direction. I saw the media kind of saying the same thing all around the whole world. And that kind of, I guess COVID radicalized a lot of people. I'd be interested to hear what your COVID story was like, Rob, or just that period of time when like the governments are printing money, we're being sold, the lie of fiat is being propagated and sold to the masses. And so yeah, then I realized basically after studying, reading all the standard books, studying economics and history, and being, going down the rabbit hole, as they say, I realized that I kept coming back to Bitcoin as like the thing that the world needed, and that I stood at, put myself on the front of like the internet in the 90s, and understood it as like, a significant discovery of humanity. And so I basically just decided I just studied everything I could about Bitcoin. I studied all the technicals, and basically self custody. A lot of it was around self custody, hammering my seed into metal, distributing multi-signature wallets, practicing things. And I started doing this for friends, running workshops, and I saw all of the people around me as I saw that the weak link was the lack of understanding of self custody and of the importance of self custody, and then also a system of like best practices, like how do you practice self custody when there's all these different companies that are trying to sell you. I mean, I don't want to take any like mean shots, but like security theater, a lot of it, I think we would agree, is like, you justify the existence of a product by having a certain set of things that, you buy your product. And so I tried to like help other people understand Bitcoin from the fundamentals of, public key, private key. You store your private key, you use your public key to interact with your wallet. There's a few basics that really kind of help someone understand Bitcoin from a foundational perspective. And then I started meeting people who had Bitcoin who they didn't understand. They'd messed up their derivation path or something simple. And then, decrypting drives, recovering old keys. And so one thing led to another. Eventually I've started Nova Sapien, the company that I've now, that I met Joshua through. And Josh Swift at Porcupine Festival. Meeting him was a really turning point, kind of a turning point, being able to, do that kind of wallet recovery, and seeing Josh's life transform. And he actually flew out to Colorado. We spent about 8 days here, distributing a multi-signature wallet and kind of doing the whole self-custody course, because that's kind of where we start with self-custody. We help people understand Bitcoin, understand the importance of self-custody, and then create a secure distributed wallet. And then when we recover the Bitcoin, they understand it enough to be able to keep it and not sell it. And I think I'm pretty stoked on my track record. Like, of all the clients I've had, I don't think anyone has sold a meaningful amount of their Bitcoin. I think everyone has kept, even when they've recovered a significant amount, they've all kept it. They understand what Bitcoin is. So that's kind of like a huge. So to me, that's like my pride. That's like the stamps on the side of my fighter aircraft. I'm like, hell yeah, I've shared the idea of Bitcoin. I've inspired someone in that, and so that's kind of a big win in my book. And seeing Josh's transformation is really cool, and being able to support him. He's become an investor in Nova Sapien, and that's pretty I appreciate it, and really cool to be able to see see Bitcoin grow around the world, and the difference it makes in people's lives. Not so much from the get rich part of it, because like that is kind of an aspect of it, but more from the savings tool aspect of Bitcoin. And Josh just so happened to save for a really long time. He got accidentally had a really low time preference, so that ended up working out really well for him.
Yeah, and I was actually really lucky to find Josh Groth and Nova Sapien at PorcFest, because, like he said, he gave me a rundown, a walkthrough of everything I needed to know in order to do self-custody properly, so I wasn't, A, in the same position that I was before, but B, won't risk losing my Bitcoin again. And also, he orange pilled me pretty thoroughly through the process, too, so by the end of it, I dumped everything else I had into Bitcoin as well. Rather than selling, I did the opposite. And, I'm not here to give people financial advice, but I was also successful in orange pilling a few friends and family members as a result of this as well. So, I guess prosperity can be contagious sometimes too.
Yeah, and from both of your stories, it's amazing how many touches you actually need with Bitcoin over time in order to really get it, right? And so for you, Josh, going back all those years to the early 2010s, what was it like to mine Bitcoin on a Linux machine? Like, was it difficult? Did you just let it run and play it in the background? What was mining back then?
Oof, man, you're asking me to dig deep here. It's been a lot of years. Back then it was really different than it is today. Back then it was a technological curiosity. I didn't really think much of it. I knew enough about technology to know that it was a unique value proposition in that it was the first thing of its kind where it could not be copied, it could only be transferred. And that was unique in comparison to everything else on the internet. And I appreciated that value of it, but I didn't really get it. And if I had gotten it, I probably would have paid more attention to it. So it was in a way good I didn't get it, because if I had, then I may have realized, the roller coaster of price action that I was going through at the time without even really paying attention. So it's been a really wild ride. I'd say back then it was just like a little technical curiosity. It was, I have a tech background. I spent a lot of time trying different applications and tech stacks and programming languages and all sorts of stuff. So, it was all just, it was another, curiosity for me.
Mm-hmm. And then you two met at PorcFest. And so how does one go about approaching you, Joshua, if they have a lot of Bitcoin that might have been lost forever? What is the common story that you hear? Are people ashamed? Are they embarrassed? Are they scared? What is it like when someone says, I have Bitcoin, I lost it, can you help me get it back?
Yeah, well, I'd probably say firstly, the most, like, by and far and large, like 9 out of 10 times someone says, I lost my Bitcoin, and you ask more questions. It's like, actually, you gave your Bitcoin away to a scammer because you were trying to be a greedy, degenerate gambler and get a return on your Bitcoin. You're trying to stake it with someone on a fake trading platform. And then you've got some Nigerian prince, nothing against Nigeria, that's going to be, actually, Nigeria is a pretty big user of Bitcoin, aren't they? I believe so. But anyways, you've got someone out there that's got all your Bitcoin, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. You've just given it away. And so the first thing is, don't put your Bitcoin on an exchange, try to get returns from it. Don't give it to some fake platform. If someone's promising you returns on your Bitcoin, you're taking a risk. If they're promising big returns on your Bitcoin, it's a scam. just and actually this is something that I've offered to a lot of people who I interact with. I say, hey, look, we have a free consultation. If you want to get in touch with us, ask us about your trading platform, and I'll be a toxic Bitcoin maxi and give you as much Bitcoin advice as I can, or just like try and help you understand the platform you're trying to transfer it to, or something like that. But that's by and large most of the time, you can't recover it because you've given it away. But once in a while, there's someone who has keys that have been locked up on a drive, and this is like a long time ago, like in Josh's story, someone paid them rent in Bitcoin. They had it on an old computer and it's sitting there. It's been sitting there for a decade. Or you understood Bitcoin a little bit and you were using something like the Mycelium wallet. There's a bug in that wallet that can make your Bitcoin unspendable from the wallet, and like the derivation paths get mixed up, or it tries to like a legacy address derivation path gets matched with a taproot address and something weird like that. So those kinds of weird things once in a while, or you forget your passphrase, or you misspelled your passphrase, or the recovery from backup was not tested properly. So you've written your words down and you throw all your Bitcoin onto it, but there's a word there, you're dyslexic or ADD, and you've rushed through it, or you haven't practiced, you haven't done the proper backup. And that's where also, get in touch with Nova Sapien or go on our website. We'll be releasing courses soon on how to properly set up wallet. So I think that, practicing best custody, best practices, getting in touch with us, is the best way to not lose your Bitcoin. But that's usually the most common ways, among others. I mean, there's so many ways to lose your Bitcoin. So yeah.
There are so many ways to lose your Bitcoin, and so that's why it's so important to take care of it properly. And now it seems as if both of you have sort of dedicated yourselves to making sure that people take care of it properly. So Josh, since you have recovered your Bitcoin and you've dove headfirst into the Bitcoin ecosystem, what have you been involved with?
So yeah, I immediately went public. Not something I would recommend most people do, but I did. And I'm trying to use my story primarily to orange pill people, like I said before, and just spread the good word about Bitcoin and how I believe, as many others do, that it's a lifeboat, a financial lifeboat. Not only that, but it's an avenue for freedom for a lot of people. And it means a lot of things to a lot of people. And I'm really just happy to be a part of the community. It's been a very welcoming community. Generally speaking, people have been really nice and welcoming, and I'm just very, very glad to be a part of it. As far as professionally, I'm sort of pivoting into the industry, trying to take my software development background and help BitVault develop their app. I'm working with them as a project manager and technology consultant to help them build out multi-sig non-custodial software wallet with time delays that's currently under development. It's actively being developed. It's coming along really well, and I can't wait to use it myself. And I'm working with Josh here with Nova Sapien to promote Bitcoin self-custody, and like he said, proper self-custody, doing it with best practices, because there's a complexity trap with self-custody, and people either oversimplify it, like I did by leaving it on a hard drive in a shed for 14 years in a non-climate controlled environment. Not something I would recommend people do. Or they overcomplicate it, and they're carving words into their floorboards and doing all kinds of crazy things. So I think Nova Sapien is the good middle ground for people, and I'm glad to be a part of them. I've invested in them, and I'm really looking forward to taking this into developing markets and onboarding people into Bitcoin, but also onboarding people into a really solid self-custody method at the same time. So they don't have to go through almost losing or actually losing their Bitcoin like I did.
I wanted to briefly interrupt today's interview to give a big shout out to our lead sponsor, Rhino Bitcoin. Rhino is the all-in-one Bitcoin super app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Buy or sell instantly. Send sats anywhere on the Lightning Network. Withdraw straight to cold storage. Even turn sats into gift cards or link to a Casa Multi-Sig, all within one sleek interface. And Rhino is just warming up. Soon, you'll pay bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and save for retirement, all without leaving the app. Download Rhino at rhinobitcoin.com or tap the link in the description below. Use promo code Bitcoin News and Rhino will drop you $10 of free Bitcoin into your account today. Secure your stack with Rhino Bitcoin and enjoy the rest of the video. And yes, of course, we all know that self-custody is Bitcoin's superpower. If we give that up as a community, then we are giving up what the true essence of Bitcoin. But it can also be extremely intimidating to new people, right? So both of you are well educated in the art of self-custody. Let's say this is a first-time listener to a Bitcoin podcast. They don't know anything about self-custody. What are the first steps? What are the most important things to keep in mind when you're starting this journey?
I think the first step is understanding that the best investment in Bitcoin is the time to understand it. And the best first investment, I mean, get some Bitcoin and create your keys with self-generated entropy with Dice, or Dice are the best way with the BIP39 word list. We have a self-custody kit on our website that you can buy, and it gives you all the tools you need to roll your own entropy, create your private key, have your public key air-gapped on your phone. And although that process isn't necessary for a couple $100 worth of Bitcoin, you can keep like cash on your phone. If you lose it, you might lose in the future $2,000 or $20,000 worth of Bitcoin only. So it's like important to value the Bitcoin and actually take the time to create your wallet the proper way. And in that process, you're going to understand some of the fundamentals of how Bitcoin works, and that's really key to your future. You're going to end up owning more Bitcoin. I might like drop into my toxic Bitcoin maxi. I joke about it because I try not to be one, but I think the reality is that most people, and I wonder about yourself as well, end up with about 2 to 3% of the Bitcoin that they would have if they just put a significant amount of their savings into Bitcoin when they first learned about it. And so if the world is being repriced in Bitcoin, and the natural state of the free market is deflation, then basically your wealth is getting decimated, and you can save it. Turn that 2 or 3% into 10%. So like set yourself a stop loss. So right now it'd be like, okay, if I put whatever 30, 50% of my savings, or this is 100% of my net worth in Bitcoin right now, when that reaches like 5% or 10% of that, then I can be like, okay, Bitcoin is something. Otherwise you do all this mental gymnastics and jump through hoops, and you're like, well, I'm waiting for my altcoins to jump back, or I'm waiting for other investments, or Bitcoin is too risky right now, or something, and then or sunken cost fallacy, or you've all these other things that come into play. So instead, understand Bitcoin, create your own keys, and understand Bitcoin to the point where you can watch what's happening to the world as it gets repriced in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might have said some words there what would have completely gone over the head of a complete newbie, right? Roll your own dice, make your own entropy, right? The BIP39 word list. So let's start from the very beginning, right? So you bought some Bitcoin on an exchange. Hopefully it's a Bitcoin only exchange, right? And if you're a new guy, you then send it over to a hot wallet, right? On your phone. So if someone understands that, then what would be the next step? Because I think that taking Bitcoin self-custody at a step-by-step at your own pace where you're comfortable with it. Because I think if you try to go all the way in from the very beginning, you could mess up and not be a happy camper. But if you take it step by step, I think it's much more comfortable. So let's take it step by step for the listeners. And
step by step, okay.
Yeah. So you've got it on a hot wallet. Then what? What would be the next logical step to take?
I really like Blue Wallet. They're a free open source piece of software that's sticks to the basics, and I would do what I said before, where you kind of separate your public private key. You understand that the difference there. So you create a wallet on Blue Wallet. You got your 12 words, write them down in three places, put them in 3 places so that if you lose your phone, you're not going to lose your keys. And in Blue Wallet, you can actually go and you can say export XPub. It just looks like an XPub. Copy that XPub, put it into a new wallet, and you've got a watch-only wallet on your phone. And so you can understand the difference between a watch-only wallet and a hot wallet. So like a cold wallet and a hot wallet. I really think like, and I know it's a little bit complicated. It sounds complicated, but once you get the idea of, there's this public key that's created from your private key. You can keep your public key on your wallet. You can interact with your wallet. You can receive Bitcoin. You can verify balances. You can create transactions, but you can't send the transaction. You can't spend the transaction without your private key. So you've got two wallets on your phone. One's a hot wallet. One's a cold wallet. You can begin to understand that. I really like to drive back the home of like understanding the fundamentals of self custody, like how that works. Is like one of the biggest indicators of having the confidence to own more Bitcoin over time. And that way you kind of understand like your keys are somewhere safe. You take it seriously. I value my Satoshis at $1 per Satoshi. So like $1 is about $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in my like imagination when I'm valuing my Bitcoin. And so you're like, wow, I've got, what is it, $10,000 on my potentially in the future of like if Bitcoin's on a reserve currency for the world, we've got $10,000. But how would I back that up? And you can like play pretend with this and treat it seriously, take it seriously, and invest the time to understand it. And that's where our courses kind of help people walk step by step through that whole process. And I guess hot wallet on your phone, and then eventually air gapped wallet, and then eventually playing around with multi-signature when the time comes, but understanding that, and I mean, you don't have to play around with multi-signature, but at least passphrase, a passphrase wallet is a good thing to understand, where you have your private key. If someone finds that, they've got the cash, but you've got another word there's like a password to your wallet, and you can back that up in two locations. So I really like having that fundamental understanding to help people educate people on Bitcoin.
Nice. And Josh, where does BitVault step into this whole stack? What kind of level of Bitcoiner and experience would you say is perfect for BitVault?
So I think BitVault's main value proposition is trying to provide a multi-sig enterprise grade level security for average people with a user interface, a user experience that average people can relate to and use. So I think that the main thing with Bitcoin is there are a lot of great wallets out there that protect your Bitcoin, but there aren't as many who protect the human holding the Bitcoin. And I think that's what BitVault's main goal is essentially by adding time delays and other security features, they can protect you from potentially wrench attacks or other kinds of attacks. Because if someone comes at you with a wrench and tells you to give up all your Bitcoin, if it's behind a time delay, then you can't actually give it to them because you don't have access to it either. And there are other kinds of security considerations that you can go through when you're not just self-custodying your Bitcoin, but and also which apps that you choose, and that would potentially give you much better security than what's currently available. I think we're shooting to release that 2026, I think is where we're at with that. We're looking at an iOS version, an Android version, and a desktop version, completely open source and focused, like I said, just on multi-sig and just on the security features of the wallet. So there's a website, bitvault.sv. I encourage everyone to check it out. We have a mailing list. You can sign up for it, find out any announcements or anything that we're up to. We have a Telegram chat. We're constantly developing stuff and talking with the community about Bitcoin and what we're trying to accomplish. So I'd say BitVault is potentially going to be a very important player in the future. So that's why I invested in them and why I also invested in Nova Sapien, because I guess I like to see technology bets early.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we talked about self-custody, but what about attack vectors, right? You've got phishing scams. You've got send one Bitcoin, get 2 Bitcoin back scams too, right? But over the last year, we've seen a growing number of $5 wrench attacks, right? Especially in France. A lot of crypto executives, their family members are even getting kidnapped, and some of them are having fingers chopped off, right? So when it comes to OPSEC and fighting off these attack vectors. What are some tips that you have in that regard?
But don't go public immediately. That would be the first thing I would recommend. Anyway, Josh, go ahead.
I think Bitcoin is at its core anti-fragile, which is, you try to regulate it. You're just going to cancel yourself from Bitcoin, and you try to extort people. Eventually, people are going to get excluded from the community. So I feel like a lot of these things are short-sighted, but nonetheless a risk. And multi-signature with time delays. We actually have a proprietary assessment for people who are wanting to understand self-custody for themselves and their family for large amounts of Bitcoin. And so we incorporate multi-signature and different types of time delay, where you have to, you potentially have up to 6 months to be able to access your Bitcoin, where your Bitcoin is held on multiple continents on a multi-signature wallet with multiple individuals or organizations that have to be interacted with in order to access your Bitcoin, which delay your Bitcoin accessing your Bitcoin for many months. So that's really the way to go for your main stack. And like your treasury, you want your treasury to be air gapped. You've got your keys. How have your B keys been created? Like, well, I guess I should say the biggest thing when we did our risk assessment, I have an aviation background, adventure sport background, and so I have a really close relationship with risk and risk assessment. When we do our risk assessments on this from first principles kind of perspective, the biggest risk is yourself. So you go and you create time delays, you create multi-signature wallets, you create all this fancy stuff, and you end up losing it because you have a head injury, you forget where they are, don't have an estate plan backed up properly, or you simply do something wrong, or you put the decimal in the wrong point, and you lock it for 10 decades instead of 10 months or whatever. There are so many like complicated things. You are your biggest risk in this, and so keeping it simple is important, and getting back to the fundamentals. And that's where someone like myself and my team, Hypercipher in Australia, and Hunter Beast, who wrote the BIP 360, quantum resistant Bitcoin improvement protocol. These are our team, and we really pride ourselves in having simple, quality solutions for this. And I think that it comes back to, making it expensive and hard to access your Bitcoin, time-wise, or expensive and hard for an attacker to access your Bitcoin. That's the main thing. Understanding it, backing it up in multiple locations, creating your keys. That's something else I kind of missed over, but how do you create your keys? If you let a hardware device create your keys for you, then you're trusting the source of entropy that hardware company used. And you might be able to trust that company right now, but in the future, or let's just say like maybe someday or let's just say Bitcoin goes to like 10 million in Bitcoin, and you're going to think back, how did I create my keys? And you're like, oh man, did I create them? Did Ledger create them for me? And is there like on a whole different supply chain of like how many people are involved in that? At what point is the temptation going to be so great for someone to put a known source of entropy in one of these key generations? So, if you've generated your key on a seed signer in an air gapped way with hardware you sourced yourself, you can be really, really confident about that. So yeah, a bit of a long answer to say multiple distribution, distribute your keys and make it hard and expensive to access yourself.
Yeah, I would also, if you don't mind, I would also add that operational security for Bitcoin is one thing, but I would encourage people to focus on other aspects of their lives too, like managing their passwords and good browser data, browser practices and various other things that can lead to, security issues. Privacy is a huge aspect of it too. Not revealing, your address and your private information online, and stuff that a lot of us think is pretty simple can lead to attackers honing in on you and then using that information, to get at your Bitcoin stack too. So it all matters in a holistic approach. You have to care about a lot of different aspects of operational security.
Yeah, it's not just your Bitcoin stack, but also your address, your driver's license, right? And when you buy Bitcoin on exchange, you're handing over a lot of this information. So in terms of your privacy online, what are some of the lowest hanging fruit things that you can do in order to upgrade your online privacy?
Yeah, I can jump into that one. I use VPNs a lot. I recommend Mulvad. Also, Tor's a great option. It's a little slow, but it works. Also, you can get pretty extreme too. I personally browse the internet with JavaScript off by default. A lot of people don't do that. That creates a lot of headaches for me when I'm browsing websites and stuff. But in the same token, it has saved my butt more than a few times too. Where I click a link I shouldn't have clicked, or something happens and I'm like, oh, JavaScript's off. Thank you. So, and there's uBlock Origin or Chrome add-ons to minimize marketing data, to minimize your data footprint in general. Those are all things I recommend people do.
Yeah, Joshua, do you have any tips in that regard?
I think I try to silo the information I want to keep private. Keep my private keys private on a device that's dedicated to Bitcoin, either like small computer or a phone running graphene. And I just dedicate that to one purpose, to just accessing your Bitcoin. And that way you kind of limit your exposure. I think in a current, you have to judge your trade-offs. I kind of give out, I use iPhone and Chrome and the Google Suite for my business and stuff like that. And it's super convenient and powerful. And, but I think 2FA, yeah, the low-hanging fruits of VPN and 2FA. Two-factor authentication, where you have like a phone number or an email that you have to activate as well. Two-factor authentication you can use. Those are pretty like low-hanging fruit, but really the amount of privacy that you want to have is going to be best achieved by having dedicated machine for a dedicated process. Just connect to your node, have your private keys on that, and that way you isolate that. You don't have to worry about the inconvenience. You get the convenience of the regular world while still maintaining the privacy of I was curious before we run out of time, Rob, about you and your Bitcoin journey. I feel like when we were sitting down in Vegas together, something that inspired me I felt like I related with you was the amount of your life that you spend in the Bitcoin environment, in the Bitcoin world with Bitcoiners. It's like I've more and more people I've even met out in the mountains, hiking on a trail that's like no one else for miles. And I meet a couple in there on a Bitcoin standard. They just sold all their properties. I did a podcast with them recently, and they're like just dedicated their life to Bitcoin, went on Bitcoin standard. They went on a trip to Europe, a little honeymoon thing, and trying to figure out what they want to do next with their life. And, their world, their life, their interests, their relationships all shift to this long-term kind of perspective where you're thinking about your future generations, or you're thinking about yourself, or you're thinking about the future of the planet. You're like more collaboration. I don't know. These are all really inspiring things to me, and I just was looking forward to hearing a little bit about your Bitcoin journey and like how much of your life is in the Bitcoin world right now, and what was that like for you, if I may ask?
Yeah, absolutely. So I first got exposed to Bitcoin, I would say around 2015, 2016. It's when I got my first Bitcoin, but I lost my Bitcoin as well in Las Vegas. So I was
Tell
hard
me
money.
about that.
Yeah, sure. So I was hard money pilled back in 2008, 2009 during the financial crisis. Big Ron Paul guy, Austrian School of Economics, gold, silver, thought that was the way. But over the 2010s, they had their run-ups, but they weren't protecting you from the inflation, from the money printing that was going on, especially in the first half of the 2010s, right? So I continued my investigations. I heard about Bitcoin, but of course back then it was for drug dealers, right? It's for the dark web. And as someone who's not that technical, I thought it was a little bit beyond me. But by 2015, 2016, there was Bitcoin ATMs all over New York City. So I went to one of them and purchased 2.2 Bitcoin for $1,000. And that was pretty cool, but I had no idea what I was doing. Right. And so I just had a QR code on a piece of paper, this printout that was the private key. Right. So I had that in a backpack. I was traveling California, went to Las Vegas, was in the airport, put my backpack down, put $5 in a slot machine, pulled the lever, looked down, lost my money, and my backpack was stolen.
Oh, no.
And yeah, that was in 2016, and I had to watch the run up of 2017, right, and just see it just explode.
No, Rob, no.
But I didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I owned, right? And it wasn't until 2020, the COVID money printing, that I realized something needs to be done here. And so I went down the rabbit hole again. 2020, devoted endless hours to studying Bitcoin. And then by the end of 22, beginning of 23, I joined on with Bitcoin News, and it's just been full time for 2.5 years since then. So been a true Bitcoiner for, I'd say, 5 years, and running Bitcoin News for 2.5. And yeah, you get to travel. Been to El Salvador twice now. That's amazing. Multiple Bitcoin PTC conferences, and we've got our local meetup here in Jersey City, which is great. Meets once a month, and then PubKey in New York City is always having great programming, and amazing Bitcoiners from around the world visit there. So fortunate enough to have my fill of Bitcoiners in my actual life. You know, there's so many people that you meet at a conference. You're like, I've never met a real Bitcoiner in real life. This is so amazing. Like, I can't believe it. But I think it's important. Reach out, go online, find your local meetups, find your local community. And it's amazing to see how it grows, right? In just the year and a half of going to the local one in Jersey City, the meetup, it's definitely grown from about 10 people to the last one. It was like, I don't know, it was like 35, 40 people. I was like, holy, well, people really are interested in this. And I mean, of course, it helps with price and everything. But at the end of the day, the more people that you can just say a few words about Bitcoin, the better. Because as all of our stories show, you need multiple touches. You need to hear about this thing, be reminded of it, see it grow over time, and then you can really get just hit by the truck and go all the way down the rabbit hole and learn as much as you need to learn to get some form of clarity, expertise, and understanding, because that's what will drive you to take all this stuff as seriously as you two do, and myself, in terms of making sure your Bitcoin is safe, secure, and it's because it's an asset to last for centuries, right? And so that's how it must be treated.
Yes.
So yeah, I have a question for the both of you. In terms of, you've both been in Bitcoin for quite some time now, and you've seen the community change over these different cycles. And now we're in the Bitcoin treasury stock era, right? But do you still see a new crop of people coming out to you about self-custody? Do you still think that self-custody, of course, is just as important as ever, but is that message getting out to the new people who need to hear it?
Sure. Yeah, I'll dive in there. I absolutely have noticed tons of Bitcoiners ever since I went full Bitcoiner after recovering my Bitcoin. I'm just noticing them everywhere. And I did a Pizza Day event. Pizza Day is now like a holy day for me. You know, I have to do a Pizza Day event every year. And I'm just meeting people left and right. And there's much interest in it as I've ever even conceived of. Like, it's just massive. So, you know, I look at this and I see really we are early, but we're at the beginning of a very, very big wave. And I'm glad to be a part of it and be, you know, trying to get as many people onto this lifeboat as I can. I'm hoping to travel like you have to El Salvador this year. I'm about to go to South America to promote self-custody and Bitcoin there, and just try and spread the good word.
Yeah, that big wave that you talk about, Josh, I think that is coming, and the the questions around treasuries and governments, nation states and banks, and I think that's where the gravity lies. That's where the money is, and so I think it's more important than ever that people use Bitcoin, because otherwise we risk centralization, and then we risk rehypothecation or paper Bitcoin, or even just quite honestly saying we have this much Bitcoin and we're going to create this much money against it. And you start doing the same things as before. Whereas when the individuals use Bitcoin and you own Bitcoin, we must use Bitcoin. We must own Bitcoin. We must interact with it. And that's the key to Bitcoin's future. I think that's the key that kind of domino affects the rest of, a lot of the risks that exist in Bitcoin's future are mitigated by people owning and using Bitcoin. So that's my big thing. You know, own your keys, not your coins. Own your Bitcoin. Use your Bitcoin. I just try and drive that home over and over. And whenever I'm out, in like I ask everyone that I interact with that I'm paying something for, tipping. I'm like, hey, do you accept Bitcoin yet? And they're like, no, but we should. And like before they were like, no, what's that? And like, oh no, hell no, this is political. I'm politically against it. And then all of a sudden now people are like, oh, interesting. No, I know about that. Yeah, we could. I heard that Square is offering that as an integration with their merchant terminal. And I always tip the shit out of anyone who accepts Bitcoin and as a thing. And I make sure everyone else knows that they got tipped a ton in Bitcoin because they and for the record, I don't actually like I've been a dirtbag my whole life, so I've been like living expedition to expedition. So just buying like literally a few dollars a day, kind of just dollar cost averaging, trying to save. For me, like that's still a big deal to. I'm not like made of monies, but it's still like tipping is, I think, a big way, encouraging people to accept it and interact with it. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I think is just encouraging that people use Bitcoin.
And to be more direct in answering your question, I think the main value proposition of Bitcoin is self-custody. And so in that it's really designed to eliminate counterparty risk, it isn't really consistent with the Bitcoin ethos to have stocks or any other sort of fiat mechanisms to hold your value. Now that doesn't, I don't want to go out on a limb and say it won't outperform Bitcoin. It might, and that's what a lot of people are saying. But to my mind, it doesn't matter if you don't hold it yourself, because then it's not really yours. So it's just that simple.
Yeah, you're not going to know how bad you need self-custody until that day arrives, right? Whether you've got to get up and go or you need to send it around the world. The properties of Bitcoin are so unique, and you give up those superpowers if you do not have power over your own keys. And Joshua, one thing I loved that you said is, do you take Bitcoin yet? Just that little yet at the end sort of implies that they're behind the curve. You got to get up with the times. And because we do know Bitcoin is taking over the world, and the quicker you get on the train, the better off.
And just and another sly little sales thing you can do in there. You're like, oh yeah, like oh, it's so cool. I paid Bitcoin to the 3 other places I've been to today. You're the only place that didn't accept it. Don't lie, obviously, but like I do actually have people set up wallets. I give all my Ubers to drivers in Bitcoin. And one of my wallet recoveries that we're doing right now for a client, they got Bitcoin given to them by Roger Ver in 2013, which is so cool. He was giving out like multiple Bitcoins to everyone back when it was just a few dollars a Bitcoin. And he's like Cassatius coins he was giving out. And so I'm interacting with multiple people who were given Bitcoin from Roger Ver at Porcupine Festival, over a decade ago. So that's pretty cool. So I feel like maybe I'm a little bit like the Bitcoin Jesus of today, a little bit say, hey, get on board, like let's go.
What wallet do you recommend them to use when you're tipping people who've never heard of Bitcoin before?
I've struggled with this. I used to use Wallet of Satoshi. They shut down. Some of my friends lost a little bit of Bitcoin because they didn't take the time to go and get it off there before it went away. This is always a risk of custodial Lightning wallets. One company that has worked really well for me is Aqua. I really love Aqua. You can create it's just one button and an email address, and you got it backed up, or one button and you can accept Bitcoin on Lightning. It has some kind of channel opening on the phone itself. It's not actually your channel, but it's like it's pretty good, all things considered. And then if they lose their phone, they can just enter their email again and recover their Bitcoin. So that's kind of cool. On Lightning, obviously Lightning as a settlement layer is super powerful and badass, and I'm super stoked to see as it develops the UI increase. Right now it's kind of hard to open your own channel and maintain liquidity and stuff like that. It gets a bit tedious, but Aqua's great. There's another one, I forget the name of what else. Another one, Josh?
Well, I personally use Strike as my exchange and Blue Wallet for my hot wallet myself.
Yeah, if you got an on-chain wallet, Blue Wallet is great, but you got to back up your keys. So if you're giving the Uber driver Bitcoin, then Aqua's pretty good. But yeah, Aqua, Blue Wallet, Strike, those are my trio as well. I can't recommend Strike enough. I think they're a super progressive company that's Bitcoin oriented, and I'm super stoked on that.
Nice. Yeah. Samson would be happy to hear you say that for sure
Oh
about
yeah.
Aqua. Yeah.
Oh
No.
yeah. So, do you know? Tell me a bit about Samson. Tell me a bit about.
Yeah. Just had him on the show. He's a
No
great dude.
way.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Cool. Well, good. I just want to say to Samson, man, you did a good job keeping that UI simple. You've thought a lot about that process, obviously. It just as direct to the accepting Bitcoin. So you're making my job easier. It's a little bit of breath of fresh air in the industry still.
Very cool. Yes. And so, yeah, as we wrap up here, let's look forward. What does the future of Bitcoin self custody look like? Can it be made simpler? And do you think people actually want to have the responsibility in terms of the vast majority of people on earth to hold their own keys and own their own money?
I'll go ahead and dive in on that one. And I just have to speak from personal experience here. In both cases, when I got into Bitcoin in 2010, the first time it was like a curiosity, but the second time it was out of desperation. It was out of a genuine need. And it wasn't until that genuine need cropped up in my life that I began to ask unusual questions like maybe I should buy Bitcoin. And I think for a lot of people, sadly, it's going to take a certain degree of pain before they start asking those strange questions. And I'm hoping that myself, my efforts, and the efforts of a lot of other great Bitcoiners can accelerate the process of adoption. Because the more adoption there is, the lesser pain there will be if and when the rug is pulled from the economy at large. And that's just how I see it.
Yeah. Well, do people want the responsibility? I mean, I lost a lot of faith in society during the years of COVID, watching, I think, what is it called? It's like govern me harder, daddy, I think is the term.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it is really, it's concerning to watch I guess the incentive structure or whatever it is that maybe it's this like postmodern ideology that's being pushed around the world behind the scenes. I mean, maybe I think we're like recovering from this from this chapter, this like dark chapter. I feel like for me it's been I see it as a dark chapter for humanity. This post COVID kind of place, and I think Bitcoin's a light. Michael Saylor does this really beautiful picture of he says the history of humanity can be described as the flame of liberty being continually stomped out and extinguished until until someone grabs the coal and runs away and rebuilds that fire. And and freedom is able, and liberal values are able to grow us as serve as a foundation for the society and civilization to grow on until tyranny and greed and the I guess the profitability of violence in this previous chapter we've lived in stomps it out again. And this is like the ebb and flow. And so currently we have I think a world of great success that we've built on the innovation and pioneering spirit of humanity. And I think we're standing on the edge of a precipice that we've stood on many times as humanity before. This like easy money where we've, uh, you know, printed money and taken, built on the live fiat of this future. We're going to be able to repay ourselves tenfold over, and you deserve to have this now because you deserve it. You've worked so hard, and our future generations are going to thank us for taking this out now. But it's a lie because you can't expand forever. And so I think people want to have the lie of fiat is also, you don't have to take responsibility. Let us take take responsibility for your safety, and then take your freedoms in exchange for that. And so this is the slippery slope. It's like push until we rebel and we say enough is enough. We're not going to take this, and then ease the pressure off just enough, and then push. And so I see another analogy that I like to think of like we're on an ocean side in the beach, and the sun is shining, and we're playing, making sandcastles. And a storm is coming, and so everyone says, "No, I don't need to get in the boat." But once the storm arrives and the tide comes in, and the icebergs come in, and we're in freezing water, and everyone's dying of hypothermia, it's easy to say, "Okay, I'll get into the boat with the warm wool blankets." But the reality is, you've lost a lot of your things by then. You've lost a lot of that hard work that your past generations, your families who have come before you have invested in you and have created this life and this the wealth for you, and it's your job to preserve that wealth. And so even just a small percentage of that wealth kept in Bitcoin is like an insurance policy against the debasement of money, the in my opinion inevitable kind of debasement. Once you drink from that chalice of easy money, you're drunk on it. We can't stop. We'll just drink that poison until we die. So these are some of the images that I like to paint that kind of depict the end of this chapter. And instead of going into dark ages of 100 years of dark ages, or collapse of civilization, or tyranny, or who knows what, we can like Jack Sparrow. He's on the mast, and it shows him there, and last minute he steps onto the pier, and the sink ships behind him. I like imagining that, and then we're stepping onto the foundation of Bitcoin as a foundation of peace and prosperity for humanity, as like economic freedom for every individual allows us to serve 8 billion. Each individual serve 8 billion people, as Jeff Booth says. So these are the kind of the idea into the future. I don't think people want to take responsibility. And I think they need to take responsibility. I think we all need to take the time to learn before it's too late. And I think Josh was spot on when he said pain and suffering is the only thing that really, in my experience, including myself, watching 98% of my wealth get decimated against Bitcoin before I was like, all right, well, I might as well, fold in humility and just stack sats. So that's where I'm at now.
I hear you, man. Yes, Bitcoin is hope. Well, I want to thank you two so much for coming on. Josh Swift, if people want to find out more about you or BitVault, where should they go?
BitVault is at bitvault.sv. I'm currently the project manager over there. We're helping them develop that wallet. Nova Sapien is at novasapien.com. I'm sure Josh will tell you that shortly. And I can be found on Twitter at Sexsov, SEVSOVERRI or EIGN. Sovereign. Sex Sovereign. I can't even spell my own handle.
SEC.
Yeah, there you go.
SEC. Sec Sovereign.
There you go. Yeah. So come check me out on Twitter. I talk about Bitcoin a lot, and we're having a lot of fun. And
Nova Sapien is Nova. It's like new human, new wisdom. Nova Sapien right there. BTC on X and Instagram and LinkedIn. And who does it? What is LinkedIn? Do you guys even know what that?
I've never heard of it. No.
But yeah, and we've got our phone number and email address on the website. Man, I love talking to people about Bitcoin. Just let me know if you have some questions about your self-custody setup. Is your uncle wanting you to send some Bitcoin to an evil exchange somewhere? I can help people out. I just I'm here for a free consultation, or any of our team is here. So yeah, I think that was the question of where to find us. And I think that pretty much sums it up.
All right. Cheers, gentlemen. Thank you very much. This subject, self-custody, is of the utmost importance. No matter how many Bitcoin treasury companies there are, you as an individual need to hold your own keys. Thank you so much. Talk to you guys soon.